Hello again, and welcome to It's Tea Time with Tony Westford and myself, Neville Gaunt. And if you know where we've been so far, we're taking you on this little journey before Christmas. 5 o'clock every Tuesday evening, we're trying to get you in the mood for moving forward and improving not just what you do in golf, but taking some of that back into the business, back into your organization, back into yourself in your world. So, Tony, we've talked about loads of things so far. Last week, we hit calibration. We just come on the back end of a great Masters tournament where it was all about self-belief with Dustin Johnson. And this week, we're going to be talking about what we're going to be talking about this week.
We're talking about pre-round practice this week. So it's kind of understanding how you get yourself ready to perform. You know, we've all got our own routines for every day when we get up at home. You know, you can pretty much nail on exactly what you do, the order at which you do things when you get up every single day. So it's kind of your own reboot, your own get yourself ready and prepared for the whole day for what's going to follow. So we do that getting up in the morning, which is absolutely fine. What we've got to do, if we're thinking about going to play golf, we've got to do the same things again. Because, you know, just because we played well yesterday, or maybe we played poorly yesterday, doesn't mean that's going to carry forward into today. You know, we've all got a plethora of electronic gadgets these days. You know, we go back to the old days where we all had PCs sitting in the corner with great big monitors and things. You know, and you press the button to start your PC the next day, and it runs through the whole series of diagnostics. It took me a while to work out that it was no point in sitting there at my PC waiting for it to come on, because it wasn't going to be any quicker than it was the previous day. It was going to go through its routine of getting ready. So I learned, I'll go make myself a cup of tea, and I'll come back with my cup of tea. By the time I've made the cup of tea, the computer's ready to work. You know, obviously Apple these days is far more instant. So we get conned into this idea that everything's kind of instant. But if we're going to play golf, we've got to run our own diagnostics before we go out to play. So that means we're going to reboot every single time. We talked about rebooting on every single shot. You know, we've talked last week about calibration. We've talked about how do we develop this skill. Well, once we've developed that skill, we've got to make sure we maintain that skill. And I remember coaching a guy years ago when I was down in Chichester, not long after we first met, really. And this guy hadn't had a lesson for years. Every golf pro he'd been to see had told him they had a really good swing and everything was absolutely fine. I don't know why you're playing off the handicap you're playing off. And I was just like every other golf pro. I told him exactly the same thing. He says, Tony, everybody's told me that. How are you going to be different? I said, well, what we'll do is we'll help you to take that skill even further and move forwards. So to cut a long story very short, his handicap came down about 8 shots within about 3 months, which was absolutely fantastic. He was big. He was the longest, the straightest. He was no longer looking for golf balls. He was in the top 5, if not winning the competition, week on, week in, week out, and driving his other senior mates crazy. I didn't see John for a while, and then he came back in the following spring. He said, Tony, I'm not hitting it very well again. I said, all right, okay, well, what's going on? He said, well, it's doing this, it's doing that. All right, fine, you know, and he was getting quite emotional about it as well. I said, so the drills we talked about, so how often you've been going to the range and hitting it left, hitting it right, hitting it high, hitting it low, working out all those elements. No, I've not been doing that. All right, okay. And we went through all the drills. Sam, how many times have you worked on that? 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock drill. So you really groove what's happening through the impact area. No, stop doing that. And we went on and on and on. I was, feeding him the bait, and he was taking it every single time. I said, so correct me if I'm wrong then, John. So all the things that you did that helped you improve, you've now stopped doing. And in the result of stopping doing them, you're not playing as well. He went, yeah, you're dead right. So John had stopped doing his diagnostics. The things that had got him working well, he'd stopped doing.
And the funny thing about that is you get to a point, and we do this in business as well. We get to a point where we think, I don't need to do that anymore because I've got good at it.
Yeah.
And the reality of life is that's exactly what you need to be doing to stay good at it, because
Absolutely.
it's only by practice makes perfect, you know, but it's the right practice that makes perfect. When you were talking about, you know, firing up a PC, because I'm a few years older than you, unfortunately, but I can remember those days of turning the PC on and using that time to go and make a cup of coffee. it was my sort of routine. I could go to the loo, go and make a cup of coffee, bring it back to the desk, and all of a sudden the dot prompt was now flashing. So whether I'd done it perfectly or not, the point was the PC had now gone through its diagnostics and it was ready. And more importantly, I'd gone through my diagnostics. You know, I'd taken a visit to the little bathroom. I'd washed my hands. I'd gone and made myself a coffee. I might have said hello to a couple of people on the way. So my day had begun. And the thing is, if we don't do those things on a regular basis, after a while, we miss them and we miss the effect. And everything you're saying there, you know, poor old, we always feel sorry for John and their namesakes around the world, because if you don't go through these routines, you actually don't get to the position you need to be. And that's
Absolutely
just common sense, really, isn't it? And
well,
it's probably worse for the golfer because they think that they've practiced this level down here, and then now they need to ignore that and they go and practice up here. Whereas every tournament we see, when we see it on the big screen, we see them at the driving range and they're going through that same practice routine. You know, every time they go through it, just before, not just before a tournament, before every day of the tournament.
Absolutely.
And then at the end of every day, they go and practice more, and some go back and get their putting right.
Mm-hmm.
So this pre-routines that we go to are really important. But let's go on. Let's look at some routines that people should be getting themselves into.
Well, we talked very much at the beginning about developing, how do we develop that skill? So you need to be formulating before you go out to play. How long do you want to practice for? Yeah, do you want to hit 20 balls? You know, Colin Montgomerie was famous for hitting about 15 to 20 golf balls before he went out to play. And that's all he would ever do. He wasn't judging them. He wasn't then hit because he hit one not very well. He didn't then hit another one. His routine was his routine, and that's what he did. Other players, the likes of Vijay Singh, who's now on the Champions Tour, he will spend hours practicing before he goes out to play, and then hours practicing after he's played as well. So it's really understanding that you want to develop your routine. Is it 20 golf balls? Is it 35 golf balls? Within that routine, though, you definitely need to focus on the idea that where is the golf ball today? I jokingly say to all of my clients, the difference between you and me is I know where the golf ball is better than you do. Now, we both know it's sitting on the ground or it's sitting on the mat, but spatially, when I'm swinging the golf club, I can predict more often than not and better than most what part of the club is going to hit what part of the ball and where that ball is going to go. That's taken me the best part of 40 odd years to develop. Now, surely if I've done that, is it not possible that other golfers could actually do that? They may not do it straight away, but eventually they'll work out where it is and they'll know where their golf ball is. So the things we've talked about is going to the driving range with first be without a ball. You're going to warm up, make a few swings, and don't hit the ground, miss the ground. Then make a few swings and hit the ground. So you're obviously then going a little bit lower. So you're working out where the ground is before you've even hit a golf ball. We've all had that situation where we're casually walking down the street, we're doing a bit of shopping or whatever, and we get to that moment where we step off the curb. And we're so caught up in our own thoughts and what we're going to do next, the ground isn't where we expect it to be. So we think we're going to walk across the level. All of a sudden, the ground isn't there. And we feel like we're going to drop through the floor because we've missed the ground because we've stepped off a level. So we need to be making sure we're waking our mind up for where is the ground today. So I know exactly what's going to happen. Once you've done that, okay, we might then introduce the golf ball. We'll hit the top of the ball. We'll go a little bit low again. Then we'll hit the left side of the ball and go right. So that's the swing that sends it right. Then we'll hit the right side and make it go left. So that's the swing that makes it go to the left. And then we'll start establishing that pattern of hitting the ball in the middle at the back of the ball so the ball goes nice and straight again. So we're creating this space in which we want to operate for that particular day. So we're getting our muscles, our mind ready for what we're about to do. Golf coaches and golfers talk about muscle memory. Muscles don't remember anything. The memory is in here. We've got to wake this up. Yeah, because my muscles are driven by what my mind is doing, and that's where all the information is stored. And if we can ignite that every time before we go out to play, we increase the chances that we're going to perform well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it always makes me laugh when people talk about muscle memory, because the biggest muscle is this one in here, and you and I call it, it's the PC, and it depends on what software we're putting through it as to whether we've got malware, behavioral waste, or it's working in our benefit. And I think the interesting thing is, and I'm going to talk about a business context here, is everyone's in lockdown currently, and part of the reason we're doing this program, on a regular basis, is that we all recognize that being in lockdown is really tough. It's mentally exhausting. And this isn't the first lockdown, it's the second. So we are all sort of struggling with what's going on here. But more importantly, now we're here, I hear all too often that people say, well, I just had a really bad call with someone and it's taken me ages to get over it. So their recovery is really not great. And the whole point about a golfer is your recovery has actually got to be good, because the time you're going to take between taking this shot on the course and getting to the next one is actually not that long. It's actually quite a short period of time. So when you get to that point, you've got to be ready to take the next shot. And this is all about a little bit of preparation. And it's this practice arena that we keep going back to. We're rebooting this almost for every shot, if that makes sense, Tony.
Absolutely. I mean, not almost for every shot, for every shot.
Exactly.
We need to deal with it after we've done it. We've assessed what's happened. So we've taken our practice game now onto the golf course. We've hit the shot. We assess what happens. We then need to relax. So the best thing to do, because we've got to have this switch off and switch on. So we need to switch on before the shot. We need to switch off after the shot. And golfers say to me, well, how do I do that? Is it possible? I said, yeah, of course it is. I says, it all really focuses around where you look. What do you mean about where I look? Well, just go and watch a few golfers. What I'm going to explain to you at the end of this, I want you to do after you've been and watched a few golfers. And as you go and watch a few golfers, watch where most golfers are looking as they're walking around the golf course. Now, lots of people these days have these motorized trolleys, electric trolleys, which they're wandering along. And those guys, some guys, the younger guys, are still carrying the golf bag. All right. But to a man, most people, until they've got this piece of information, are staring at a spot somewhere between 10 feet and 15 feet in front of them all the way around. They're in this wonderful natural surroundings we call nature, with trees and birds and other animals around the golf course, and they're focused on a spot which is 10 to 15 feet in front of them all the time. As they're doing that, their brain is engaged the whole time. So they've got this inner dialogue running the whole time, this commentary of what might be happening, what has happened, what might happen, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Oh, you know, I hope the shops, I've got to get finished before the shops close, etc., etc. So what you need to do is, in between shots, is walk around looking up. Generally, there's trees. There's certainly plenty of sky. So just look up in between shots. That switches off that internal dialogue. It gets you enjoying this whole environment that you go and play golf in. All right, that's okay for switching off, but how do I switch back on? Well, it's quite simple, really. When you get to the golf ball, what do? Well, I look down at the lie of the ball. Brilliant. And that act of just looking down switches your brain back on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know, that's another routine, you know. So we started off by talking about your preparation, but your preparation needs to continue through the program. Like in business, your preparation needs to continue throughout the day. You can't just, like me, I mean, I'll have a cup of coffee when I first get up, and then I'll have another and another, you know, because my brain is kicking into gear, and I'll mess around a little bit on social media. And then I'll get into webinar mode currently because we're all working from home. So I'm somewhere else in the world at about 6:30. But the preparation for the next conversation doesn't start during that conversation, because actually I'm not going to be focused on that conversation if I'm doing it. And again, this is common sense. But going back to the golfer, you know, one thing I heard many years ago, and it's an old joke, you know, golf spoils a good walk. And it's true. If you keep your head down, where is your focus going to be? It's literally going to be on everything you've just done and imagining things you're going to do. But look up. I mean, it's a great analogy, isn't it? Just look up.
Look up, yeah, absolutely.
And go and enjoy it. Be in the moment, as people say, be in the mindfulness arena. Be in that moment, because you've got lots of wonderful moments walking around a golf course that you're missing because you're looking down.
I remember having this conversation with one of my clients years ago. We were playing golf. I think it was locally in Leicestershire somewhere. A really, really good lady golfer. And we're walking down this fairway, and we talked about, you know, switching off and switching back on again. And we're walking down this fairway, and I've been doing it for years, so I can quite happily hold a conversation while I'm walking down the fairway. So we're walking down this fairway, kind of side by side, both looking up, and I'm having a conversation, and we're just chatting away. Yeah, what did you do at the weekend, etc., etc., etc. And as we're doing that, she said, "Tony, shut up." I said, "All right, okay." She says, "I can't concentrate on looking up whilst you're talking at me, because as soon as I want to respond, the first place I've got to go is to look down and think." She says, "And I don't want to think." Just the act of looking up took concentration. And it's does it take concentration? It's because we always do these things, and we need to break these patterns. Golfers, people are in patterns, and what we need to do is, one, we need to recognize the pattern first. We need to raise our awareness of what that pattern is. By gaining feedback from that awareness, in turn gives us more focus and control, which is exactly what we talk about in terms of being mindful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is about giving yourself feedback, isn't it? It's about having that continual process that's going on. So although today we're talking about a specific routine, it's the routine that we repeat time and time and time again, and then we get good at it. But we don't stop the routine. We keep doing the routine. I mean, frankly, you wouldn't get up every morning and not go to the bathroom, not have a wash, put on yesterday's clothes and walk out the house because, you're a human being. One thing you do is you will stink. So we don't do that, do we? And we've got into that routine.
Yeah.
Very simply, we've got into that routine where we do things automatically. And that's the whole point. We're doing things automatically, but we're not stopping the routine. So,
well, I think that the key thing is if you keep doing the routine, you keep getting something different out of it.
Exactly.
And you keep learning. And that's what's important. It's just because what the classic golfer one is, but I've done that now. So therefore I don't need to do that anymore because I've got it. Well, no, you haven't. You need to keep doing it because now you're in a different space. You'll get something different out of it. And it's being aware of that and continually developing that skill, making that neural network as strong as possible.
And that's the message for today. Okay. Once you've got a routine, particularly in golf, keep to it. Because as Tony just said, you'll learn something new because you'll be moving up the ladder. You'll be improving your skill set. As you improve your skill set, you become more aware of what's going on. And although that routine thinks, like John, John stopped a routine and that made his swing worse. It's just common sense in golf, actually. Go through that routine. Every major championship we see on the TV, they go to the practice range and you see them all lining up. Not one of them turns up and goes straight on to the first tee. They all go through that routine. And the most important thing is we don't even know what routine they've gone through before they get there. They may, take a walk in the garden. They may have 3 cups of coffee. They may have a cup of tea. We do not know. The point is they've got a routine. They make it work. That helps them turn up. In business, exactly the same thing. Capture your routine, persevere with it, make it work for you, but more importantly, keep doing it because that's the route to success. And it's as simple as that. That's our message for this week. The routine needs to be continued. It's a pre-match routine, it's a match routine, it's a post-match routine. It doesn't matter. You need to keep at it. Tony, it's been a pleasure as ever. We look forward to our next It's Tea Time version next week. So it's goodbye from him. And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.
Cheers, guys.